Hey everybody, this is Brandon from Sparksmith helping you see and be seen. Today I wanted to go over what goes into our cat eye headlights. We don't just pull these off the shelf and send them out to you. Make quite a few modifications to these so that they are as simple as possible to install and so that they're as bright as possible. So let's take a look. Get the box open. First thing we're going to do is kind of look over stuff and make sure everything's okay. And they come packaged up like this. It always comes with these handy dandy white gloves, so if you want to be super fancy about your install, you can. Pull those off, and then these headlights, when we get them from the manufacturer, they come with halogen bulbs in there, which is definitely not up to Sparksmith standards. So the first thing I'm going to do is pull these halogen bulbs out. There's an H1 in the high beam. Get rid of that guy. And an H3 in the low beam. And I do all this for you so you guys don't have to worry about any of it. So get rid of that guy. Missed the trash can again. And replace those with our S7 version, the latest version we have of our bulbs, and this is an H1 variety, so that's going to go in the high beam, and then the H3 is going to go in the low beam. So you got these nice bright, crisp white LED bulbs for your low beam and your high beam. And I get those centered in there. I get all the wiring done so that when you get them, all you got are these two plugs right here. The caps will be on, and you just plug these right into your factory connections. The next step, once I get the bulbs in, is I create a plug-and-play harness for these two wires. The lower lights for the turn signal housing come as a plug-and-play unit, and they're ready to go. These, the factory expects you to use these little clips and do some kind of janky wiring to get them to work. But at Sparksmith, what we do is I make a harness that jumpers, sort of like what we have with the 03 to 07 cat eye grill bars. It'll come with a harness that jumps. It'll be something like a simpler version of this, where you've got a jumper going from, this will plug into your factory turn signal, and then this will plug into the new lower housing, and it'll have a plug coming off of it that'll plug straight into this, so that the upper light works exactly like the lower light does. So I'm going to get to it on this, and we'll show you a few steps along the way. So when you're installing these H1 and H3 bulbs, the collar actually slips right off of the bulb. It's just a friction fit, and that's a good thing because it allows you to install the collar inside the headlight first. So that you get the collar down in there, and then the H3 is going to be easier to see. You just take the collar, place it in there, and then you get the little spring clip that goes right over it. And once you get that clipped into place, you can make any kind of adjustments. You need to make sure that the clip is seated in the right place, or that the clip is seated and that the collar is seated pretty much in the center of that cavity, and then the bulb can just slide right into place. The next thing I got to do is cut out a notch so that this wiring can fit like it's supposed to, and the cap can still fit on. So the high beam, there's enough room inside the housing that the driver can fit down in there, and you just sort of slide the bulb into its new home. I gotta do that, and then this way the cap we just plug into these wires. Make sure those are on there tight. the wiring I can tuck down in there, and the cap fits on so that it's a weather-tight seal. On the low beam, there's not enough room to fit this driver inside the headlight. It just won't fit. So I have to cut a little section here so that the wiring can get inside and the driver stays outside the headlight. But the cap can still fit on there. So you got a nice neat package like that. Then once I get this other wiring done, I take them over to the bench and test them to make sure that the bulbs are adjusted properly and the output is as good as it could possibly get for you. Okay, I've got the wiring done on the headlight assemblies and I've got the bulbs installed. Next, I've got to make the jumper that will allow us to have a plug and play installation on the headlight assemblies. Enough. So I'm building this jumper harness and I'm almost done with it, but these two wires are going to be the plug that goes straight to this, which powers the white daytime running light that's built into this headlight. And it has obviously a power which comes from the parking light, and the ground on this actually goes to the turn signal. So the reason behind that is that I want the headlight to have the same functionality as the turn signal housing. And from the factory, these trucks they had like you had your running light, parking light, and on the outside there's a little peanut bulb. And if you've ever watched your turn signals from the factory, when the turn signal blinks, the running light little peanut bulb turns off, and so they alternate back and forth. And the way that works is the peanut bulb gets power from parking and it actually grounds through the turn signal circuit, and it actually finds a ground path that comes through here, through the turn signal filament, and into the ground wire. And then when you put 12 volts here to turn on your turn signal, that means you have 12 volts and 12 volts. So whatever's connected to this just turns off because there's no potential difference there. Kind of a long, drawn-out explanation of why they alternate like that and why those lower housings with the built-in running light will blink. The white will blink on and off when the turn signal's blinking, because they always get power from that little peanut bulb. So again, in order to make the upper ones work the same way, we got to wire it in the same way. So if you ever wondered why they alternate like that, that's why. So I got the final crimps made. Just going to set this up so that I make sure I get the pin out correct on both plugs. And then we'll hit these heat shrink tubes with the heat gun. Then that's one jumper done and one headlight done. Just got to repeat the process on the other one, then we test them out. There's something oddly satisfying about heat shrink. I've said it before and I'll say it again, the dielectric grease, always important. So make sure that your connections, if they don't come greased, especially your factory sockets, they will come with a little tube of grease. Just make sure and fill those factory sockets with grease so that these pins don't get all rusty and corroded. set up here. This is a front radiator support off of an original cat eye truck with the grill and the harness and everything, so I can make sure that everything we do works for you. I'll get my low beams and my high beams. One thing to note right here, come around this side, if you look right in here, you can see originally there's a rib that kind of sticks down and over. When you get these headlights, you're going to need to take a razor blade and just trim away that notch right there. And that should be all you need to trim away, so that this will just slide right into place. And then you can take your pin and lock it in. So with the jumper that I've made, you're going to take that, and for your factory socket, this one's been done before because I've used it so many times, but you're going to want to take this grease that's included and just kind of fill this socket. There's plenty of grease to fill this one and the other side and have some left over. So when you plug it in, you should feel it kind of click into place, and you want to make sure that the blue wire on the jumper matches up with the blue wire of your factory wiring, and of course black to black. That way you know the polarity is correct. Then you'll take this and it will plug into the factory park turn signal, the outer one on the new lower housing, and then this, you'll route this wire kind of down to here, and it will just literally click into place. And then your resistor, it'll come with some screws, and usually I recommend just somewhere like right on this plastic is fine, because the only time these have power is when the turn signal is active, so they'll never really get hot unless your turn signal was to just for some reason stay on all the time, in which case you probably got some other issues. So anyway, to say that, just screw it to, it can screw to the plastic or metal or wherever you want it, just so don't let it just dangle, because that can cause some other issues down the road. Okay, so I've got everything plugged up, and all we're doing right now is testing for the running light function. So when I apply power to the parking lights, it turns on, and then when I apply power to the turn signal, you can see when there's power on the turn signal, the white turns off. So again, this running light is getting power from the park, and the ground is actually coming through this resistor, or sorry, through the resistor and to the factory ground. So we got the headlights in, and we're going to test those next. So that's our low beam, and then this is the high beam. And then if you get the optional all lights on module, your high beam will actually look like that. So that's the difference between having just the high beam on and then having both of them on if you get that all lights on module. Last but not least is you're going to want to aim the headlights, get that vertical and left-right aiming done. From the factory, they're actually pretty close. You can see this one, as if the truck was sitting here, it's level, and you know, it's got a good, it seems like it's about where it needs to be. Making adjustments does take a little bit of patience. Come back here and look at the back of the headlight. What you'll have to do if it's not right is you have to pull the pin back out and roll the headlight down, and then on the back you can see for the low beam there's a screw on either side at the bottom of the projector, and the inside one is for left-right adjustment, the outside one is for up-down adjustment. So you have to take it out, turn the screw a little bit, just a couple of turns is all it takes for these two to adjust the low beam. These two long screws do the same function for the high beam. Okay, so after I've gotten the bulbs installed and everything tested, pretty much ready to go on that one, just got to repeat the process for the other headlight. And then when you get them to install them, it's just a quick, simple plug and play procedure. You end up with a nice function like this. And you can see this one, I've modified. This is my personal truck. I've done the double shot harness, so both bulbs are now both a parking light and a running light. And then if you come over here, you can see that both of them are functioning as a turn signal as well. So that's, if you opt in for the double shot harness, it will have this kind of effect with your running lights and turn signals. And the other nice benefit of this is that whichever one of these you get, it's got built-in resistors, so that if you want to run an LED bulb in your factory turn signals, you can without any kind of hyper flash.